I was just thinking that we need changes.
What kind?
Perhaps you should visit your sister.
I suppose I could. For how long?
A few weeks.
A few weeks, isn't that a little much? Besides, you'd miss me.
I think you need a change of environment.
Do I?
Yes.
Mwangi was a wealthy farmer who lived in Kikuyu, a fertile village in the outskirts of Nairobi, where the red soil was so rich that even a careless seed seemed determined to become a plant. Mwangi was not merely a farmer. He was a farmer with a big reputation. He owned 20 acres of maize, several fields of beans, a large banana plantation, 2 dairy cows, 12 goats, more chickens than he could count, and a magnificent bull called General. General had a large hump, enormous horns, and the temperament of a village politician. Whenever someone walked past Mwangi's homestead, General stared at them skeptically. If the visitor came too close, he charged. If the visitor ran, General chased them. And if the visitor climbed a tree, General stood beneath it patiently, as though waiting for them to reconsider their life choices. Mwangi loved the bull. He often told people, "That bull understands me." The villagers would nod politely. Nobody had the heart to tell him that the bull understood absolutely nothing except the language of aggression. Mwangi had built a beautiful homestead. There was a large stone house with a shiny iron roof, a spacious granary, a cowshed, a chicken coop, and a long veranda where he sat each evening, drinking tea and admiring his land. He had worked hard for everything he owned, but beside him through all those years stood his wife, Wanjiku. Wanjiku was a quiet, intelligent woman with a sharp memory, a generous heart, and eyes that missed very little. She had married Mwangi when they were young. Back then, they had owned almost nothing. Their first house had been made of mud and grass. Their bed had been a woven mat. Their cooking pot had a hole so large that Wanjiku joked that they could cook soup and pour it directly onto the floor. They had struggled together. When Mwangi planted his first acre of maize, Wanjiku helped him weed it. When the harvest failed, she sold her earrings so they could buy food. When Mwangi became sick, she stayed awake beside him. When he borrowed money to buy his first cow, she helped repay the loan. When success finally came, Wanjiku never complained. But prosperity has a strange way of changing people. Sometimes it makes a generous person more generous. Sometimes it makes a humble person proud. And sometimes it gives an ordinary man's imagination enough room to become dangerous. Mwangi began spending more time in town. He bought expensive shirts. He wore shiny shoes that looked completely unsuitable for walking through muddy farms. He bought a mobile phone so large that the villagers joked he could use it as a cooking tray. And then he met Salome. Salome was a beautiful young woman who had recently moved to a neighboring village. She sold clothes at the market. She was charming. She laughed easily. She knew how to flatter people. And most importantly, she made Mwangi feel important. Whenever he visited the market, she greeted him warmly. "Ah, Mwangi," she smiled, "the famous farmer." Mwangi would straighten his shoulders. "How did you know me? Who doesn't know you?" That sentence entered his heart like honey. At home, Wanjiku said, "Mwangi, the cows need medicine." At the market, Salome said, "You look younger every time I see you." At home, Wanjiku said, "Please repair the fence." At the market, Salome said, "A successful man like you should not be doing ordinary things." Mwangi began to enjoy the difference. Salome did not know the man who had eaten boiled maize for 3 days because he had no money. She only knew the wealthy farmer, and Mwangi liked that version of himself better. And with Salome, he could forget about the old version of himself entirely. Soon he became convinced that Salome was the woman he was meant to be with. There was only one obstacle: his wife, Wanjiku. At first, he tried to convince himself that she was the problem. She does not understand me anymore. She has become too serious. She's always talking about the farm. She does not appreciate me. The more he repeated these things, the more he believed them. One evening, Mwangi sat beneath the veranda. Wanjiku brought him tea. "You are quiet lately. Anything on your mind?" she asked. "I have been thinking." "About what?" "The future." Wanjiku smiled. "That is good. Any plans I should know about?" Mwangi looked at her. "I was just thinking that we need changes." "What kind?" He hesitated. "Perhaps you should visit your sister." Wanjiku frowned. "I suppose I could. For how long?" "A few weeks." "A few weeks? Why? Isn't that a little much? Besides, you'd miss me." "I think you need a change of environment." Wanjiku studied his face. "Do I?" "Yes." She said nothing. Mwangi drank his tea. He knew he had planted the seed. He thought he had sounded convincing enough, but Wanjiku had been married to him for 22 years. She could tell that something was going on by the expressions on his face. She knew when he was lying. She knew his lies had different shapes. Some were small, some were clumsy. This one was enormous. Still, she did not confront him. In fact, she acted as if she did not suspect anything. Instead, she watched, and strange things began happening. One morning, as she was doing her regular cleaning, she noticed that one of the filing cabinets had been left open. This was unusual, as Mwangi usually left that cabinet locked. She decided to check if everything was intact. As she looked inside one of the folders, Wanjiku discovered that her name had disappeared from an important farm document. She had seen her name there before. Now it was gone. She asked Mwangi, "Did you change this?" He looked surprised. "What?" "The farm document." "What are you rummaging through old documents for? Besides, you are mistaken. That document was always like that." Wanjiku smiled. "Perhaps." She said nothing more. Mwangi looked satisfied. A week later, a man from town who had come to do business with Mwangi asked her when she was planning to leave the village as she served him tea. She was puzzled. "Why would I leave?" The man shrugged. "I heard you are going to your sister's, to stay for a few weeks." "Who told you?" He hesitated as he looked towards the bathroom where Mwangi had disappeared to. "Mwangi told me earlier." Wanjiku thanked him. That evening, she watched her husband carefully. He ate dinner without looking at her. "You should visit your sister soon," he said. Wanjiku nodded. "Perhaps I will." Mwangi smiled. But it was a nervous smile. He tried to hide it. Wanjiku noticed, but said nothing. Then another strange thing happened. Her jewelry disappeared. Not all of it, only the valuable pieces. Her wedding necklace, 2 gold earrings, a bracelet her mother had given her. Wanjiku searched everywhere. Nothing. She asked Mwangi if he had moved them. He became unusually angry. "Maybe you lost them." "I don't think so. You women are always misplacing things." Wanjiku looked at him. "I have kept those earrings for 15 years. Mwangi shrugged. "So what? What do you want me to do?" "Nothing." She smiled. "I will find them." That night, Wanjiku did not sleep. She lay beside her husband and listened. Mwangi's breathing was heavy, but she could tell he was awake. After midnight, he quietly got out of bed. Wanjiku closed her eyes. She heard him walk outside. She heard the back door open, then close. She waited. After several minutes, she followed. Mwangi was standing beside the granary. He was speaking quietly to someone. Wanjiku approached silently and hid behind a tree. She could not hear everything, but she heard one sentence clearly. "Everything will be ready by next week. Don't worry about it." Her heart began beating faster. Then another voice answered, a woman's voice, Salome. Wanjiku knew it immediately. She returned to the house before they saw her. After a few minutes, Mwangi crept back into the house and crawled back into bed silently. The next morning, she behaved normally. She cooked breakfast as usual. She greeted her husband cheerfully. She even laughed at one of his jokes. Mwangi relaxed. He believed she suspected nothing. But Wanjiku had stopped being merely a wife. She had become an investigator. She spoke to the farm workers. She asked harmless questions. She checked the storeroom. She examined the documents in the cabinet closely. She searched places she had never thought to search in hopes of finding more clues. Then she discovered something that made her blood run cold. Inside an old metal box beneath a pile of blankets, she found copies of legal documents. There was a land transfer agreement, there was a letter, and there was a handwritten note. The note said, "Once she leaves, everything will be easier." Wanjiku sat on the floor. Her hands trembled. For 22 years, she had trusted the man who wrote those words. She had slept beside him, raised children with him, built a life with him, and now he was planning to remove her from it. But why? She continued searching. Then she found the answer. There was a bus ticket, one way, to a distant town several counties away, and beneath it was a letter addressed to her sister. It falsely claimed that Wanjiku had decided to leave her husband permanently. Her stomach turned. Mwangi was not merely planning to send her away. He was planning to make everyone believe she had abandoned him. Wanjiku sat silently. Then she noticed something else. A name, Salome. She read the letter again. Mwangi had promised Salome that once Wanjiku was gone, Salome would move into the homestead. Wanjiku's eyes filled with tears, not because of Salome, not even because of the betrayal, but because she suddenly remembered all the years she had spent believing her husband was her partner. She whispered, "How could you?" Then she wiped her tears, and something inside her hardened. She would not confront him, not yet. She wanted the truth, all of it. Over the next several days, Wanjiku quietly gathered evidence. She discovered that Mwangi had been selling portions of the farm without telling her. She discovered that he had taken loans using their property as security. She discovered that he had been giving Salome money. But the biggest shock came when she spoke to the bank manager. There was a large loan in Mwangi's name. The collateral was the farm. If he failed to repay it, the bank could seize the property. Wanjiku suddenly realized something terrifying. Mwangi was not wealthy anymore. He was drowning in debt. His fancy clothes, his motorcycle, his expensive trips to town, his gifts to Salome, all of it had been financed by borrowing. He had been pretending to be richer than he was. And now he had decided that removing Wanjiku was the easiest way to escape his problems. But Wanjiku discovered one more thing. The bank documents contained a signature, Mwangi's signature, and beside it was a witness signature, Salome. Wanjiku stared at the page. So, Salome knew. She knew about the debt, she knew about the farm, she knew about the plan. Wanjiku smiled sadly. Now she understood. This was not a love story. It was a business arrangement. Salome wanted the farm, Mwangi wanted Salome, and both thought Wanjiku was standing in their way. They were about to discover that the person they considered powerless had been quietly collecting the pieces of their own downfall. Then, Mwangi made his final move. One Sunday morning, he told Wanjiku, "I spoke to your sister earlier. I told her that you are planning to visit her soon. She was very excited, and she agrees that you should stay with her for a while." Wanjiku looked at him. "Did she?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Perhaps permanently." Wanjiku pretended to be shocked. "Permanent? Why would I go there permanently and leave my life with you and our children behind?" Mwangi sighed. "Maybe you need a new life." She lowered her eyes. "I understand. I will go and stay with her for a while. We can discuss for how long later." Mwangi nodded and smiled with satisfaction. He thought he had won. That evening, Wanjiku packed a small bag. Mwangi watched from the doorway. "You are leaving tomorrow?" "Yes." "Good." He tried to hide his excitement. Wanjiku looked at him. "Are you happy?" "Of course not. I will miss you, but it will be nice of you to take a break and spend some time with your sister." His excitement was so badly controlled that she nearly laughed. Instead, she said, "I will leave early." Mwangi nodded. That night, he went to bed smiling. He believed his plan was complete. But before sunrise, Wanjiku did something unexpected. She did not leave for her sister's house. Instead, she walked to the chief's house. The chief was an elderly man named Mzee Karanja. She showed him the documents and explained everything she knew about what her husband was planning. He read them slowly. His expression darkened. "Are you certain?" "Yes." "Does your husband know you found these?" "No." The chief thought for a long moment. Then he said, "Do not confront him." Wanjiku nodded. "I had no intention. We will let him finish his plan. Meanwhile, you can stay here. My wife will prepare the spare bedroom for you." 2 days later, Mwangi told the village that Wanjiku had abandoned him. He even cried publicly. The tears were so dramatic that one old woman whispered, "That man should become an actor." Mwangi told everyone that his wife had chosen to leave. He expected sympathy. He received it, at least temporarily. Then, he announced that he would be traveling to town to finalize some business matters. That evening, Salome arrived at the farm. She wore a bright dress and carried 2 bags. Mwangi welcomed her. "Everything is ready?" She smiled. "Are you sure?" "Wanjiku is gone." Salome looked around. "When will the land transfer happen?" "Tomorrow." She smiled. Mwangi smiled. Neither noticed the villagers gathering quietly at the edge of the compound. Nor did they see Mzee Karanja approaching. And they certainly did not see Wanjiku. She stepped from behind the house. "Tomorrow?" Mwangi froze. Salome dropped one of her bags. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Wanjiku smiled. "You both look surprised." Mwangi's mouth opened. "Wanjiku, I thought you... Did you think I had left?" He stared at her. "But your bags, your sister, you should have checked." The villagers began murmuring. Mzee Karanja stepped forward. "Enough." He held up the documents. Mwangi's face drained of color. "What is that?" "You should recognize it. After all, it's your plan." The villagers gathered closer. The chief read aloud the details of the land transfer. He read the debt documents. He read the letter. He read the note. Every word landed like a hammer. Mwangi tried to explain. "It's not what you think." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Then explain it." Mwangi looked around desperately. He turned to Salome. "Did you know?" Salome stepped backward. "Do not involve me." Mwangi stared at her. "You are already involved. You signed the documents." Salome shook her head. "I only signed because you told me everything was legal." The villagers laughed bitterly. Mwangi realized too late that the woman he had trusted was already protecting herself. Then the chief said something that silenced everyone. "Mwangi, you planned to dig a pit for your wife." He pointed toward the farm. "But you forgot one thing." Mwangi stared at him. "What?" "The pit was on your own land." The villagers erupted in laughter. Even Wanjiku smiled through her tears. Mwangi's knees weakened. He sat down trembling. The wealthy farmer who once strutted through the village like a king suddenly looked like an old man who had lost his way. But there was worse to come. The bank manager arrived. He informed Mwangi that the bank would be taking legal action because he had falsified several documents. The farm could be seized. The money he had borrowed was far more than anyone knew. The villagers finally understood. Mwangi had not merely betrayed his wife, he had destroyed himself. Wanjiku stood quietly beside him. He looked at her. "I am sorry." She stared at him. "I know." "Can you forgive me?" Wanjiku's eyes filled with tears. "Forgive who? After everything you have done? Forgive you? Ha!" Mwangi's shoulders fell. He lowered his head. "You are my wife." She nodded. "I was." The words hurt him more than anger would have. Months passed. Mwangi lost much of his land. He sold his motorcycle. He sold his expensive clothes. He sold several cows. The grand house remained, but the life he had built around it disappeared. Salome left the village. Nobody knew exactly where she went. Some said she returned to the market. Others said she had found another wealthy man. The village joke was that she was now conducting interviews. Wanjiku, meanwhile, rebuilt her life. She took control of the remaining farm. She introduced better farming methods. She planted vegetables. She started a small dairy business. Within a year, the farm was profitable again. She let Mwangi work there too. Not as master, not as owner, but as a man trying to rebuild what he had broken. He had moved to a small mud hut with a leaking roof that he had rented from Zekaranja for almost nothing, as he had promised to fix it up. Sometimes, he would sit beneath the mango tree and watch Wanjiku directing workers. He no longer felt jealous. He felt ashamed. One afternoon, he approached her. "Wanjiku." She turned. "What?" "I finally understand something." "What?" "You are never standing between me and my happiness." Wanjiku said nothing. "I was standing between myself and my happiness." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "That is the first wise thing you have said in years." Mwangi laughed softly. "Perhaps I am learning. Perhaps." My friends, if you made it to the end of this story, thank you for staying with me. If you haven't already done so, kindly hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss another interesting tale like this one. And right now, there's another amazing story waiting for you on your screen. Believe me, you don't want to miss it. See you on the next one.